about 7-8 more minutes here today. Appreciate him joining us. Congressman, in the last segment, we were talking about calls for a new global financial order. You said they would do that about a month ago. They have called for that in just scores of publications. Here's a headline: calls for new global financial order increase. Where we'll all still have our currency by name, but a private group of bankers will actually set that monetary value. They're talking about a global carbon tax being a new fractional bubble where we will buy our carbon taxes from the private banks. I mean, this is world government of and by the central banks.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it, and they're doing it through the financial system. We call it socialism, and it is a form of socialism, but it's closer to fascism, because big business and big government are partners in this deal. So it's a little bit different than the communism and Swedish socialism. But I think that this has been going on, and as you I'm sure agreed, it's been going on for a long time. But I think what's really happening today is that we're at the end stages of the monetary system that evolved out of the breakdown of Bretton Woods in 1971, and it's lasted an amazingly long period of time, 37 years. That's pretty good for a total fiat currency, but it has to be revamped. And they're talking about liquidity crises and tight credit here in this country and around the world. But what they're not saying is that the dollar reserve standard is done for, and they're just lining up now, see who the most powerful special interests are. Even though we talk about the special interests and the powerful influential people, but I'm sure there's a contest going on there. Some win and some lose, and there are contests between these groups, but they're lining them up, and the central banks have talked for a long time to each other. This is why I'm going to work harder next year, although I've had this before, is even though we can't get rid of the Fed in a day, we need to have more transparency. We need an audit of the Fed. And the one top secret thing that they have at the Fed are the conversations they have with other central bankers of the world. And if we knew everything the Fed was doing and saying, everything the President's Working Group on Financial Markets was doing and saying, we'd have a lot better insight, because I am sure they have been very much involved in the markets, and they're losing control of it, and that's why they have to start a whole new system.
Well, that was my next question. This week, even MSNBC's reported secret meetings with Paulson and the top 10 banking heads where they're handing them hundreds of billions of dollars apiece, including money to the brokerage firm Goldman Sachs, with an inner group of Goldman Sachs, Kashkari, and, of course, Paulson running it. I mean, that's beyond conflict of interest and insider trading. I mean, should Congress call for a public investigation of that?
Well, absolutely. And, you would think that the opposition party, if that's what you call it, the Democrats, when the Republicans have the presidency, that they would do that. But, when it comes to a bailout, where is Pelosi? When it's come to funding the war, where is Pelosi and her people? They're all very supportive of it. So whether it's working your way into the system and being Secretary of Treasury for a Republican or Democrat, it's the same. If you're the Speaker of the House, whether you're Republican or Democrat, you still have to be on the inside. So there's really not much of a chance for Oval to demand it, alert the people, and try to let the people know exactly what's going on.
Congressman, isn't the good news, though, they were getting 1,000-to-1 phone calls, according to many congressmen in the press and senators, against the banker takeover empowerment immunity bill, as it should properly be called. And so we can say the American people don't know what's going on, but really they are waking up to this, and it's showing how you have both parties working for the international banking system and not for the people.
It's very encouraging. We won that first vote. The people spoke out. They knew what was going on. Then the next step was the special interests came in. They had the money. They twisted the arm, and they badgered, and we had 57 individuals switch their votes. But the next step should be, if the people really wake up, is throw the rascals out. Especially if they take 57 of those guys who switched votes. If there was ever a group that should be targeted, they should all lose their elections just for switching their votes and not even defending what they're doing. But so it's a tough job to win these elections, but hopefully we see a lot of incumbents lose, both Republicans and Democrats.
Congressman Ron Paul, briefly, studying history, being a monetary researcher yourself, an award-winning researcher in this, What will this hyperinflation, most experts saying 25, 30% compounded by next year, we're about 14% now, people on fixed incomes, a real depression in the economy with hyperinflation on top of it, really never before seen since Weimar. What is that going to look like on the street?
Well, it's going to be pretty rough, and that's why people say that the inner cities could be really in turmoil by that time. But it's also the reason our government has probably made these preparations, with military troops and preparing for emergencies and all the ability to undermine every bit of privacy in this country. I imagine they know what they're up against, but it could be very, very bad. But if we did the right things, it wouldn't have to be bad. That's why I think our efforts they're frustrating at times, but what else can we do other than alert as many people, get as many people prepared, the more people who can take care of themselves and be self-sustainable, the better. But ultimately, we have to win the intellectual fight and convince people that freedom is better than socialism.
All right, Congressman, two final questions. Congressman Brad Sherman came on this show last week and said that they were threatened with physical, now Glenn Beck's covered it, martial law. They said martial law will just be declared if Congress doesn't pass this. He said he couldn't talk about, because of rules of the House, the different congressmen that told him that. A, can you comment on that in the Army talking about using troops through NORTHCOM against the American people? And B, did you hear about these threats?
I didn't hear about them, so I can't verify them. I'm not totally surprised. I'm a little bit surprised that they were that much in the open, but I don't think many of us would be surprised if they're not preparing for that. We see it at times of, like hurricanes, like we saw in New Orleans, and we see a little bit of that even in my district now coming out of the storm Ike. There's some authoritarian approaches in some of our areas. So, no, the atmosphere is set for that, and it's a consequence of so much that we've done incorrectly since 9/11. We've given up so much of our freedom. So the military state is available there for somebody who can scare the American people enough and say, look, if we don't take care of you and have martial law, there's going to be total chaos. So we do live in very, very dangerous times.
Yeah, and that will destroy confidence right there if there are food riots, and the socialism isn't going to be able to pay for it with worthless dollars. Final question. He's on record. Barack Obama has now come out, and I believe they're both horrible, just like you've stated. You're saying vote for the Constitution Party because both are basically collectivists. But Barack Obama is saying he will declare CO2 a toxic waste, and you were joking during the break with me. You said, well, what are the plants going to breed? But obviously that's a tax on breathing, according to the New York Times. This is the collectivist, elitist dream, is it not?
Yeah, it sure is. It's just an excuse. They've used the environment to socialize this country and scare and terrify people. But, every time we exhale CO2. So how are you going to tell where the CO2 is coming from? But, it is not to ignore the fact that pollution is bad. We shouldn't do it. But we don't need the federal government. We don't need these regulations. If somebody is, contaminating your breathing space and your air, there's a perfectly good way of dealing with that through property rights. You should never be able to buy the right to pollute. So true pollution shouldn't be up for sale. And at the same time, if we get hysterical and worry about this overtime, all we're going to do is dig a much bigger hole for ourselves.
Absolutely, Congressman. You've got so many websites affiliated. What's the best one for people to visit?
I think probably Campaign for Liberty. That's where we're most active right now. CampaignForLiberty.com.
Absolutely. Congressman, thank you so much for spending time with us. How's the family doing?
They're doing fine. Thank you for asking.
All right. Tell them I said hi and take care, sir.
Thank you.